Right, hello everyone. Are we live? Can you see me? Fingers crossed you can see me right now. If you can see me and if you can hear me, type in the comments. Say yes, we can see you and hear you, Arj. That would be amazing. You will never guess. You will never guess. I think you can see me. 4 of you in right now. Unbelievable. I finished coaching 4 minutes ago. You're not going to believe that. 4 minutes ago I finished coaching. Absolute rush to get this on. Typically, no live producer. Carol-Ann. Hello, Carol-Ann. Thank you for joining us. There's 3 other people watching right now, so say hello. I can't see you unless you say hello. Usual thing, please, please, please write in the comments where you're watching from. Tag someone you think might benefit from watching this video, and then click that share button and write something to share it to your feed. It would be fantastic. Rach, you're here. You can see and hear me. Fantastic. Hello, Rach. Zana, good morning. Yes, we can see and hear you. Fantastic too. Cool, so there's a few of us in here. We're going to give it a couple of minutes to load. Cannot believe the rush I just had then. Managed to make it just in time. Hopefully we're going to get some kind of Facebook feed production working. It was working quite well last week, so I am hoping that will happen this week as well. We're going to be talking about a few topics. One really main topic actually for me, which I'm really interested on, which if you're a client with us or an athlete with us, it will make a little bit more sense. But I would like to encourage you, if you have any questions, anything you would like to go on or ask me to go on and speak about, please write them in the comments. Doesn't matter how silly the question is, how basic it is, how complicated it is. I will discuss that with you today. Such a shame. No option on today's feed for me to be able to go and do the question bar and stuff like that, but I don't think it makes that much of a difference really, does it? It's just something I like to enjoy really each time. So, 6 of us in. Usual thing, guys, please say hi so I can see you. I've got a laptop here, feed running up here, and obviously slightly out of breath because that was a massive rush to get here on time. Finishing coaching minutes ago, but well worth it. So, Emma, hello Emma. Jamie, I presume you're with Emma. So our topic really today is one about volume, about training, about how much you should be doing, and then one where we're discussing a kind of tangent from that is the impact of home workouts or lockdown training that we've discussed a lot. Whilst I'm talking, this is your opportunity to write down any questions at all. Loads of you in here from 4 weeks 4 kilos, so please write down any questions you have as well from 4 weeks 4 kilos to this basic Q&A. This is a great opportunity for you to do so. So, loads of us during the lockdown period have been in the position where they've decided, or you have decided, to try and do some exercise, some formal exercise, some structured exercise to maintain your fitness, your health, your well-being throughout the whole what we presumed would be 4 or 5 and turned into a lot more weeks. Something like 12 weeks, I think lockdown was, over here in the UK at least. And this created something really interesting. People are training every single day suddenly. People are going running all the time. I see loads of people, or especially at the start of lockdown, taking up running, and that was brilliant. Absolutely fantastic. Hello, Emma. But we have to consider A, our starting point, and B, what we're really looking to get from our training. What's our end point? What kind of training goals do we have? Is it muscle mass? Is it weight loss? Is it cardiovascular fitness? So I thought it'd be a really good opportunity for me to talk about those different types of training, and then talk about the different amount of load volume that you will require. On top of this, a new research paper came out about 7 days ago, 10 days ago, doesn't matter, does it? Which basically justified and supported my training and also our coaches' mentality and ethos, our principles behind recovery periods for your exercises. So first things first, we have a variety of different training types. We have cardiovascular training. This is in effect stuff like running, cycling, hiking. You can also get it from very brisk walks, not to the same extent, but it's still very useful. Circuit training does a little bit, but cardiovascular fitness, especially considering the nature of the pandemic, is vital for our long-term health. Cardiovascular fitness is improved by doing those aerobic exercises that I've just mentioned, not necessarily at maximal capacity, but actually somewhere at like 70-75% of our maximum heart rate. Below that still has an effect, but it just has a decreasing amount of contribution. Stop me at any point, by the way, if you want me to go through anything. John, how are we doing, John? Some of your lads dropped by last week, John. It was cool. So we're using those kind of stimuluses to improve our cardiovascular fitness, which is fantastic. We then have stuff like circuit training, sprints, interval training, these things which do contribute to your cardiovascular fitness. They do massively improve your VO2 max, so the maximum amount of oxygen your body can utilize. But they also have an effect on, or a small effect on improving your maximal endurance. So basically working at a higher level, you gradually push the gap higher and higher and higher. Then we have different types of resistance training. So resistance training doesn't really improve our cardiovascular fitness unless we have very short rest periods. So resistance training being in the form of anything that requires your body to work a little bit harder. So body weight exercises like press-ups, like squats, those are forms of resistance training. They just don't offer as much resistance as something to weights and exercise bands. Though that added resistance causes your muscle to react and respond in order to handle such intensity. Resistance exercise is vital for our well-being, especially as we get older and older. So resistance exercise basically prevents sarcopenia, muscle breakdown, muscle deterioration. And what we will be noticing during lockdown is that a lot of people will have experienced this because they won't have been going to the gym, obviously, and therefore their muscle mass is reducing, their amount of stimulus to the muscle reduces. So one thing that was a common question that I saw posted a lot on the internet was about, okay, Krish, bro, how we doing? One thing I saw posted a lot on the internet was around, okay, so I'm doing my home workout, I'm doing my normal press-ups, but instead of being able to use the weights that I had at the gym, I'm having to find ways of doing that around the house with household items like baked beans. I saw loads of baked beans and milk jug workouts, quite interesting stuff. And it's important. We had to adapt somehow, and they do work. So people were performing similar workouts, but just with these different items, which are obviously weighing less. Now, instead of compromising for that amount of reduction in weight, so that's a form of intensity, people just carried on performing the same repetitions and sets. So very often we hear 3 sets of 10 to 12 repetitions. Nothing wrong with you being told that. Wrestling my nephew. Nice. Hey Noah, behave. But when it comes to creating the same stimulus to keep your muscles working, we actually have to hit an ideal amount of volume in our workouts. So volume is the number of repetitions and sets at a particular workload, so amount of resistance or intensity. It can be applied in loads of different variations. Now, the critical error that most people have been performing is that if they're used to doing 3 sets of 10 repetitions squatting in the gym with a bar on their back or some dumbbells, and suddenly they're doing it body weight, they are not going to get the same response from their body, the same adaptations. Now, because of all of this talk in the past of, oh, if you want to build muscle, you aim for 10 to 12 repetitions, and if you want to tone your muscles, you want to aim for 15 repetitions, that has kind of clouded our judgment on what's effective and what's not. So if you're doing home workouts, I want you to consider this now. I want you to consider increasing your repetitions. So if you're doing 3 lots of 10, maybe aim for 3 lots of 20. Cut it down a little bit if that's too much. Because these additional repetitions will be effectively adding a little bit of resistance, rather in the form of weight, but just in the total volume of your workouts. Now, what's really, really interesting is a lot of people have changed they've changed their style of training. They've actually pushed it towards circuit training. Circuit training is fantastic for improving your fitness. And there are a lot of people who would prefer to do a press-up, prefer to do a bench press than a press-up, because sometimes body weight is heavier than the bar that they're lifting. So there's nothing wrong with this. Circuit training is also at least providing your body with a bit of stimulus. So if you've been training in the gym prior to lockdown and now you're worried you're losing all your muscle mass, there is some evidence to show that if you just constantly prod the muscle by doing some kind of stimulation, whether that's riding on a bike or via circuit training, it will actually help you hold on to that muscle mass that you've created. So you won't lose absolutely everything. But it's really, really, really important that you consider what your end goal is. So if it's for fitness, are you doing enough cardiovascular exercise? If it's for health and well-being, you should probably be doing a little bit of both. Even if it's just squats from a chair, a dining room chair, up and down, that will trigger some kind of response from your muscle tissue. Now, I said there was a really interesting journal article which came out a week ago. I read it in detail last night in bed to make sure I had a full understanding of the paper. And basically what they had, actually at this point, guys, if anything I'm saying isn't making sense, or if you've got any questions, pop them in the comments. I will be sure to answer them. And if you have any questions, whether it's about weight loss, training, running, nutrition, the whole lot, pop them in the questions and I'll answer. But for this scenario then, you have these 2 groups that they worked with. One group performing their exercise session in a gym, so it is slightly different to what we've just been talking about, but in a gym they're performing their exercises and they're taking very short rest periods, less than 1 minute. The other group over here were taking long rest periods, 2.5 minutes to 3 minutes in between their exercises. What they found was that this group over here, taking short breaks between their exercises, so in between sets, they weren't actually improving their muscular strength or their hypertrophy, so the amount of muscle they were building. Or they weren't, it was something like 37% less than the group over here who took lots of rest in between. Now, a lot of people will say, yeah, but when I'm in the gym or I see other people watching me just sat there waiting, I feel like I'm not working hard enough and they're judging me. That's perfectly understandable. But the principle here is that basically this group were reducing their amount of rest, trying to feel like they're really intense workouts, but they weren't actually getting as much work done in that time because their repetitions and their sets had to be much shorter. So their total volume of their training session was much lower. Whereas this group over here, who are resting 3 minutes in between each set of exercise, found that they could push on and achieve the 10 reps or the 12 reps every single set, and they were able to achieve the full training session. Therefore, the volume difference in training between this group and this group was quite substantial. And this had a very, very, very big impact on the development of strength. And very noticeably, the most important thing for hypertrophy, so developing muscle mass, was total volume, so the total number of repetitions performed. Now, this basically builds on a study from about 18 months ago, 2 years ago, which showed that there's effectively a nice peak. If you can do 100 repetitions per body part every single training session, that creates muscle mass, muscle growth, as long as you perform it another 2 times. So to put that in a very applied terms, basically, if you do your typical bro gym workout of chest and triceps training, doing it on a Monday, a Wednesday, and a Friday, when people always in the past saying, oh, you won't be able to train the same muscle group that quickly. Actually, no, 100 repetitions of each exercise on those 3 days creates muscle protein synthesis, so they're basically stimulating new muscle growth. That was the best way to do it. You might then have one day where you just train a little bit of all the other muscle groups, but focusing solely on 1 to 2 muscle groups was the most important thing. Now, interestingly, I thought when I did my very first 4 weeks, 4 kilos program, it's probably 18 to 24 months ago. When I first did this program, I actually combined 4 weeks, 4 kilos with this exercise regime. So I would train 100 repetitions on just 2 body parts 3 times a week, and then once a week I would do all the other muscle groups, stuff which I found probably harder and didn't want to do it as much. It's a good excuse, isn't it? You've got to enjoy training unless you're an athlete where you need to enjoy it, but you have to remember that goal. And basically what I noticed was in the 4 weeks, I lost an awful lot of fat mass. But in addition to that, by stimulating those muscles for the higher number of repetitions, so a higher volume of training each time, that basically caused more muscle growth. So in the very applied side of things, it works. It supports the science. The science says do loads of repetitions, unlike possibly your gym instructor in your local gym has said. And now I'm putting it into practice. And did I find the concerns that people had? Well, you won't be able to train the same muscle group back to back, 2 days on the trot. No, I didn't really find that was a massive problem. Sometimes I felt a little bit sore, but actually I was able to mentally push myself to work a little bit harder to make sure I achieved those repetitions and weights. If I couldn't achieve that weight, the primary goal here was to still achieve my repetitions, so keeping my repetitions really nice and high. So if I had to sacrifice a little bit of weight, so rather than doing 30 kilo dumbbells, I used the 25 kilo dumbbells, but it allowed me to hit my 100 repetitions, then so be it. It was stimulating the muscle, and it's all relative. So what one person does over here, as long as it's at the same volume and same percentage of effort, over here is absolutely fine. Right, so that's my first topic. I have got one question which was submitted, and that was about returning to exercise after injury. I'm going to give you all a few minutes now. Write down questions. I'm going to give you 60 seconds. I'm not going to give you a few minutes. We don't want to hang on for a few minutes for you to write something. But if you have a question about health, fitness, running, nutrition, anything at all, post that now. Pop it up on the comments screen here, and I'll read it out, and I'll try my very, very best to help you. The question that I was asked, just to let this stimulate in your mind, was basically, I sustained a running injury back in April, tried pushing on through it. Now it hasn't improved. My friend has told me not to do anything and go cycling. However, when should I start training? Should I start stretching it? Should I start strengthening it? And I thought this is a really interesting point actually. At what point after an injury should you start stretching, and should you start strengthening the area of injury, the injury site basically? So this is your time. Post your questions in the comments. I'm going to take a sip of drink. A little bit, I like doing these every now and again where we do like a little bit of education as opposed to whole time Q&A. That being said, last week's Q&A, how brilliant was that? Back and forth with so many of you. Really good. We did the whole poll thing and had the questions popping up. That was very cool. So I did enjoy that as well. Can't be 6 of you watching, not one of you with a question. That would be unbelievable. If you work with me, if you see me, this is your opportunity to get in another question before I give you the answer about the injury one. By the way, guys, did you know there's a cog on the right-hand side of your stream, which you can choose the quality of the video feed? Interesting point for you there, I thought. So 20 more seconds for your questions. At this point, please click like, love, haha, wow. If you find my Q&As useful, it would mean the world to me if you can tag someone and share this video. It really, really does help us communicate the message. And also, Zana, you can probably see the beard a little bit clearer today. My client just now said, oh my goodness, Arj, you look younger. And I said, okay, does it mean I look younger than my actual age, or I now look my own age? Very kindly, he said, I look roughly 18 years old. So I hope you all appreciate. Lockdown beard is gone. It wasn't lockdown beard, it's just standard. Right, guys, I'm going to get on to the question then. So I have an injury. At what point should I start stretching that injury? Should I start strengthening? And in this particular case, return to running. Now, many of you may have even noticed on my Strava, I wrote that I'd hurt my Achilles. I've mentioned it in the Friday Night Track Club group. This is an interesting area that we'll all have at some point during our time of exercise. We will get an injury. Hopefully, we don't get reoccurring injuries. Hopefully, we strengthen ourselves and bulletproof ourselves so those injuries don't happen in the future. First and foremost, you sustain a muscular injury. We're talking about muscular injuries here, not bone injuries, muscular injuries only. In the first 24 to 48 hours, we're not looking to stretch. Okay, we don't want to stretch that muscle. Usually the first thing we do, if we've been running and we feel, ooh, that hurt, first thing we do, we stretch. That is not what a damaged area needs to do. You wouldn't want to get, say, an elastic band which is already starting to blister, starting to tear, and then the first thing you do, okay, I know how to fix this elastic band so it doesn't break, I'm going to stretch it. You wouldn't do that, would you? That is your muscle, okay? So avoid static stretching, so holding still a movement for the first 24 to 48 hours. Definitely not what you want to do. Dynamic stretches, you can start introducing those after 24 hours. So a dynamic stretch might be a leg swing, for example, for your hamstrings. It might be calf walks, so rising up onto your toes and walking, or it might be down in dog, what's it called? It just slips out of my mind. Does anyone remember that? Downward dog, down in dog. Downward dog position, driving your heels towards the floor, just gradually doing it. Those are dynamic stretches, and you can start introducing those after 24 hours. But in the immediate aftermath, no static stretching for up to 48 hours. Lots of people will also say, oh, go get some painkillers, go get some anti-inflammatories, NSAIDs. Basically, in your first 24 hours, you should avoid NSAIDs as well. Paracetamol, as long as you're not allergic, absolutely fine, following the correct dosages as well. That's really, really important. But NSAIDs, so anti-inflammatories, you should avoid for the first 24 hours without fail. The important reason is basically, although it does reduce inflammation, it actually slows down the recovery period. So in the first 24 hours, a lot of important stuff is happening. And by introducing this medication, it slows down the recovery opportunity. And that might actually be detrimental for the long-term recovery of that muscle tissue. So avoid those. After 24 hours, then you can start introducing anti-inflammatories. Please, please, please though, make sure you are watching your anti-inflammatory and your painkiller consumption. Ideally, just rely on the one. Make sure you're eating before you take your anti-inflammatories, and only take what's necessary. I generally only would take them, an anti-inflammatory, after a meal for the initial period of time where I'm feeling a lot of pain, as opposed to basically flooding it and just thinking, yeah, I need these, I need these, I need these. How do you know how well your injury is recovering if you're just constantly blanking over it? That's basically the talk. So those are the first 48 hours basically covered. We're talking about static stretching, and we're talking about anti-inflammatories or painkillers. The other thing we haven't mentioned is ice. Now, ice is unbelievable. We all know we should ice an injury. Click like right now if you know you should be taking or using ice to recover from an injury. And wait for those to all come flying in. Then, how many of you ice for 4 or 5 times 20 minutes a day from your injury? Caroline, you've got a question. I will answer that in a minute. I will 100% answer that. Not many likes coming in. Maybe no one knows to use ice then. Right. So basically, icing, here we go, they're coming. Claire Finley, how are we doing? How is your family? How's Wandy? So icing is actually not just useful, it's amazing. Ice is absolutely phenomenal at helping you recover from an injury, but you must be doing it correctly. You must be using ice for 20 minutes at a time, a minimum of 3 times a day, ideally 5. And that's obviously very difficult when you're working in an office. But if you're working at home now, this is your opportunity. Make sure you heal correctly from all of your injuries. So when you're applying ice, it would be useful to have one of those cool packs. That's what they're called. They're blue packs. Stick them in the ice freezer. Ice. I can't speak. I've been training and coaching people all morning. Can't speak at all. I was going to say ice box. Stick them in the freezer so it's always available for you there. Grab it, put a little thin cloth around it and then apply it to the area. You must have it covered, otherwise you'll get an ice burn. Keep it on that area for 20 minutes. No longer. If the actual area of injury is quite substantial, do apply it for 20 minutes, then go to another area. If you have ice cubes, you can do ice massage. So as long as the cube exists, you basically keep doing this circular action. It's not just a weird thing that my hand's doing. Circular action around the affected area, and that will contribute towards your 20 minutes. You will notice very, very, very quickly your injury starts to recover by doing this regular icing. The first mistake that you can make though is by, okay, the pain has gone after 3 days, I stop icing. You must continue. It's vital that you do that. So I hurt my Achilles the other week. Obviously, we all know about my Achilles issues. Go to this icing protocol and it's fantastic. It's really, really helped me recover. What have I been doing in addition to that? I've been doing some strengthening. I haven't done any static stretching, but I've been doing some strengthening. Because effectively, you have a weakness, and that's what's caused this injury to occur. The weakness might be compounded by poor mechanics or a shoe, or environmental issue where the ground was uneven and that just caused you to roll or whatever. But you need to strengthen the area. So after about 5 to 7 days, you can begin strengthening your injured area. It might actually be really, really minimal, the amount of strength work. People confuse strengthening a muscle with loading up the dumbbells, loading up the barbell, and really working really hard, putting that body through a lot of stress. Strengthening up could involve, okay, I'm coming up onto my toes 5 times, and that's it. But I'm going to do that a couple of times a day. That's part of the regime. Obviously, There are too many injuries, too many muscles, and too many different issues for me to be able to talk about what kind of exercises you do. But 5 to 7 days, as long as you're seeing an effect from the ice, you should start introducing some strengthening, and then we'll be basically working with some stretching as well. But we're paying close attention to the pain scale. Meet the pain with your stretches, never surpass it, okay? Hopefully that has been useful, because at that point, you can then start introducing your runs. But it's not going to be anything what you were doing pre-injury. It's, in my case, I went and did a 4K run instead of the planned 8K run at speed, 4K, to see how my calf, my Achilles responded, and then do more strength work, do more icing, compound the whole thing so we have the answer, return to sport, the thing we enjoy. Right, click like, love, haha, wow, if that was useful. If you have a particular question on it, ask away. Zana says, I didn't really know that ice would help so much. That's good. Yeah, Zana, it's the best out of everything I've just mentioned. Ice is the one thing which will help and contribute the most. Right, if you have a question on that topic, go ahead and write it in. I'm going to answer your question now here, Caroline. So, a question for an oldie like me. You don't classify in that bracket just yet, Caroline. I try and do 12K steps, 12,000 steps a day, but that is all the exercise I take. Your talk this morning was interesting, as I definitely want to get my body fat percentage down. What exercise would you suggest to build up my muscles? Cool. So definitely that is an impressive figure. 12,000 steps a day. Phenomenal. Well done. That's a really, really good first step, or accidental pun, sorry about that. Jamie, hello. So walking is excellent. Maybe you can consider varying your walking routes so you have a little bit of terrain to work, so a little bit of incline. That will start working your quadriceps a little bit more. I would definitely get you, encourage you to be doing some seated squats. So the seat at the dining room table, standing up from it and sitting as slowly possible. So the downwards proportion of that movement as slow as possible, getting back to seated and then coming back up. Doing that activity, say 3 sets of 15 repetitions every other day, will make a massive, massive difference if it's something you haven't been doing so far. Jamie, it's my pleasure. I've just forgot about your sprained ankle, wasn't it? In addition to that, it could be stuff, and people find this amazing because it's so basic, but it could be things in terms of, rather than doing a full press up, literally, so I'm going to turn my back on your wall in a second, I'm sorry about that, but it could be getting towards your wall, placing your hands against that wall and leaning ever so slightly towards the wall. It's not a press up, it doesn't have the same stimulation as the press up, but you are going to have to take some body weight through your upper body, and also to stop your abdomen touching the wall, you have to hold that self nice and strong here within your core. So we're getting some benefits there. I would also encourage you to be doing some balance work, so effectively standing on a single leg, trying to keep that other knee as high as possible. The straight leg is going to be working, so your ankle is going to be working like this all the time. It depends on, in terms of how much you want to go for a workout as such, but getting some resistance bands, so these are Dyna bands. They used to be really popular in the 80s, then they made a comeback, and doing some few movements with your shoulder, like front raise, lateral raise, can be beneficial. If you're doing anything on your shoulder, always have a bend in your elbow. Don't worry if you have discomfort above 90 degrees, then don't go above 90 degrees, just come nice and shallow. All of those kind of exercises are useful, but I would 100% recommend that you get a Dyna band, some form of resistance band, because they are absolutely brilliant, because they allow you to control the amount of tension, but the tension stays throughout the entire movement. Unlike a dumbbell, so if you take a bicep curl with a dumbbell, when you get to that position, there's no weight going through the biceps, so loads of people pause, stay up here, cheat, get a little rest at the top, and then they rush that part, where actually, in fact, I come up on my toes, this part from here, completely straight to there, is where the most amount of resistance is required. That's the really important part. I hope that does help, Caroline. try those few exercises out, and also post in the 4 weeks 4 kilos group over the next week or so, and I'll try and get a few more exercises for you. Jamie, what was your meal last night, Jamie? I was very jealous of the chips, but I did have a beer. I did get a beer very comfortably into my calories yesterday. It is 10 past 12, so we've done 40 minutes. I'm aware it's a slightly different setup today with me delivering a kind of talk on training at home, resistance work at home. But if you have any questions now, post them in the comments and I'll do my very best to answer them. I'm going to give you 60 seconds to ask those questions and then it is game over. You will have to ask them or wait until next week. Don't be like that, Jamie, it's fine. You don't need to feel guilty about it. If you managed to get that within your calories, absolutely amazing for your day yesterday. I was just jealous of the chips. I got a photo, everyone who's wondering what's going on. I got a photo of Jamie's evening meal and beer last night. A little bit of jealousy. 3 beers, chips, bratwurst. Wow. Impressive, Jamie. Right, guys, you have 30 seconds remaining to ask your question. Ask now or forever hold your peace. Sport has returned to TV in quite a big style this week. The Premier League returned. Free to watch matches included Norwich. Not for me, really. Ian, don't worry, no problem at all, Ian. It's very nice to see you. Today we went back to that other format, so I was delivering a talk really about different types of training that people have been doing in lockdown and how it's important to get volume within our training if we're not getting the same intensity and stimulus. That's probably a big or a better way of getting a summary in for you. Excellent question. Jamie, brilliant question. So Jamie says, static questions. Told you I can't speak this morning. Static and dynamic stretches, how long should you hold them for? So, dynamic, so remember you're doing a leg swing or you're doing some walking lunges. It's a movement. We're talking like 20 to 30 seconds at a time, and you can just gradually increase that. For static stretches, interestingly, soft tissue can only be manipulated, and that's what you're effectively doing with a static stretch, when you reach about 2 minutes. But the entire journey up towards that 2 minutes is still beneficial. So effectively what I'm saying there is the longer you can hold it towards 2 minutes, the better. Obviously it's boring and can be quite uncomfortable. I would always start off at 15 seconds per that muscle, but I would be performing 2 to 3 sets of that at least. Ideally working 30-second holds, and then once you're comfortable with that and you've moved up the ranks as such, working on minute holds, minute and a half holds. It does very much depend on the muscle tissue you're aiming at. So stuff like the calves, which the calves are very, very, very powerful, strong in terms of the load that you can put through an Achilles, for example, they will need longer holds. If you can't bear to do a longer hold in one duration, one sitting as such, then you'll have to do more sets of that. So instead of doing 3 lots of 30-second calf drops, you might need to do 5 lots of 20-second holds, for example. Maybe that helps. There's a big argument actually that some stiffness is required, but we should realistically be doing dynamic stretches before every run or every training session and static after every exercise. I think we spoke about it a couple of weeks ago where I talked about it's a snowball effect. It basically gets tighter and tighter and tighter, and then that's where the opportunity for injury occurs after a period of time. Caroline, my pleasure. It was very, very brief. I appreciate that. So do let me know how you get on. Do post in the group when you need some more exercises and maybe say, oh, I want to work on this, I want to work on that. And if you need a link to the resistance bands, I sent one out recently to a client, and I'm going to pin this comment or pin this in the comments. This is the exercise vault. So Caroline, you just made me think of this. I have been videoing loads of exercises. I'm working my way through all of the different ones, but I've been videoing loads of exercises and then basically providing a few tips on how to perform them. There is a playlist. I'm going to pin this one here for press-up variations and how you're actually meant to be performing them. I think I've spelled variations wrong, I have. Press-up variations. There we go. So I'm going to pin that to the top. Oh no. I've written it as me, so I can't pin it. Anyway, the Arj one, that's me. I'm Arj. You'll see that pop up. If you want to have a little look, I would love it if you subscribe to the channel. I would love it if you share that link and share this video. That is it. Oh, Jamie, awesome. Super, thanks for that. You are welcome. That is it from me this Sunday. Next week, we'll get back to our normal format. We'll be taking all of your questions. I'll be speaking about whatever people contact me about over the next 7 days. So if you have a question, maybe you want it to be anonymous, then submit it to me via info@performancephysique.co.uk or send me a direct message, or if you have my number, text it me. That's absolutely fine. We'll cover those next week. Next week is all about Q&A, no talks from me as such. Thank you very much. Please stay safe, and I look forward to seeing you all next week. Share this, hit like, love, haha, wow, all of those things. Ah, cool, 30 seconds for a static stretch, but only one set. Yeah, no one wants to stretch at the end. I'm guilty of that, Jamie, don't you worry. Keep at it, you guys are doing well. I will see you all very soon.